everyone. We are the Colors of Parenthood, and today we have our lovely guest. Her name is Gergana. Gergana, could you please tell us a bit more about yourself? Where are you from?
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, it's my first podcast appearance talking about my motherhood experience. So I'm really, really happy to share a bit about it. About myself, a very short story. I'm from Bulgaria. I'm from a really small town, I would say. Okay, it's a small town called Dobrich. It's not that small. I've been though in Copenhagen for the past 9 years. I came to study 9 years down the road, I'm with a 2 year old, a husband, and a cat, even. So I guess like I'm settling well in Denmark. Um, on a professional side, if that actually is important, I have a background in corporate settings and a startup system, mainly within people and culture or HR. Um, I actually just quit my job. Like my last working day was last week, so I'm embracing the entrepreneurship journey, and I'll be building a venture within women's health, and I'm really happy to share a bit about it later in our conversation.
Okay, congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank
That's
you.
a really, really risky and wonderful step that you've taken. So, a bit more about the topic that we're into. Could you tell us a bit more about your motherhood journey? When did it happen? When did you give birth?
Yeah. So I gave birth on 24th of December 2021. So when I when I got pregnant, they told me like the due date, I think was 19th of December. I was like, "Oh, please." I know I've read like the first time babies usually go comes a bit later. So really hopeful it won't be in between Christmas and New Year's because I'm such a birthday person. I love my birthdays. It's in the summer, and I think that's maybe the reason. So I was really hoping that my kid will not have like a sort of inconvenient date, but it was like at 11:20 in the evening. Um, so in Bulgaria, it's actually Christmas Day, so it's not Christmas Eve. Um, I got pregnant when I was, I think, I was 25 or 2025, which is a bit different than many other people around me. It was very conscious choice, I just wanted to be a young mom, and I think it's because somewhat there is flexibility around adjusting to new ways of living. Obviously, I had like a partner that I'm certain that he would be a great father, and turned out that's true. So we decided to have a kid, and it actually went faster than we thought, which we're very lucky. We are very, very fortunate that we didn't have any issues. My whole pregnancy was great. I know that a lot of women can't relate to it, but I actually didn't have any, like, I haven't really puked even once. Sorry for my language. Um, it was pretty good journey. I traveled a bit. Uh, we were just it was summer as well, and like in my second trimester, it was summer, so it was pretty good. And I was working out and playing tennis. My mom, she was so obsessed with telling me all the time to stop and like to stop playing tennis, that there was something bad will happen. But I mean, listen to your body, as they say. So I did play tennis, did cycling, did running, did weightlifting, all kind of sports, and I think that really helped me to stay sane. um, but my labor was not as pleasant at all as my pregnancy. It actually was a completely different experience, which ended up in C-section, and I will share a bit about it later, I guess, in this conversation. And I think despite a great pregnancy, I don't know if it's trauma because it was never like diagnosed or anything, but it was traumatic for sure. The experience, it really um, added a lot of different perspective on what it is to be a mom and how the reality that you're facing is not meeting expectations, especially after having such a good pregnancy. And it was winter, and I know it sounds silly, but like being in the dark with a kid that you have no idea what to do with. I mean, I seriously was like, what I'm supposed to do now? Was pretty hard. And I think because I'm a person who really likes diversity in her day, it was also very, very hard to stick with this same routines, which actually is a great thing for a kid, I think, for my kid at least. Being able to stick with the routines we had, I think will really help him to sleep well, to eat well, and to be social. But it was hard for me to adjust on the same thing. I mean, especially the first month, everything was the same every second hour, and being a, I guess being away from my family, it also played some role. I have my in-laws are here, so they have been super supportive, and I I was never that appreciative of the Danish culture as when I went into the motherhood, because there was no interference. It was a lot about me showing an interest for them to help or asking them, but they would never interfere, show up unannounced at the door, which I really appreciated. Um, but it struck me something interesting. Last night, I had like a very insightful conversation with a woman who went through quite traumatic experience herself after giving birth. And she asked me like, when did you start feeling about like the same as your old self? And it took me by surprise, because I don't know I have like fully transitioned back to my old self, and I don't know if I will ever be. And it's a hard realization actually to say that.
Yeah, there is this concept of grieving about your own identity, and I guess when you become a new mom, that's a quite a possible reality. Uh, I'm not a mom, but definitely I imagine that my life would turn around. So probably all of my interests, my hobbies could be different, or they would be also around the kids' daily routine. So a lot of things could change. What would you say is the hardest thing that changed after you became a mom?
The hardest? Ah, I think it's just like, I mean, there is not a single task during my day that I don't have in the back of my head, like that my kid needs to be taken care of. He's in a daycare, and here it starts from relatively early on in comparison to maybe Eastern Europe or South Europe. He started when he was 11 months. It was horrible 6 months because we were always sick, all of us in the family, and we were just rotating. The first 2 week would be him, then it will be me, then it will be my partner, and then it just goes the same like vicious cycle. So I guess that whole experience, I mean, no one prepares you for that because it's also very individual. That was super hard. I think in regards to your identity, I have always struggled to, I've asked a lot myself, like, who am I now? What I'm supposed to do? And what do I want to do? Also, I think it's like your whole life sort of starts to shift in a different perspective, and you start to ask even like, do I want to do this at work? Do I want to even live in Denmark? There was a lot of different conversations, um, and I get to realize, which was later on, uh, after I gave birth, so maybe the last in he was maybe 8 9 months, let's say. I really got to this realization that identity, that doesn't necessarily mean one thing. You can be a mom, you can be a tennis player, you can be, I don't know, like HR professional. That's how I saw myself back then, at least. You can be a friend, you can be a wife, you can be a partner, you can be anything you want to be, and you don't need to be one thing. And I think, at least for me, from my experience, maybe now it sounds super simple, but back then it was really hard to realize that, I don't need to be just one thing, because someone maybe have those expectations from me to me just a mom. I mean, I could be anything I want to be as long as I don't harm people around me. And I think that so self-realization really helped me to just embrace all the different roles I have in my life.
Yeah, definitely. And you're also a woman. So, like, that's another
Indeed.
identity that we always should think about. And I just wanted to ask, because I'm curious, how long is the maternity leave there?
So you have now it's a bit different, but back then, like 2 years ago, it's almost a year. I think it's 50 weeks or something, or 48. So it's almost a year that is paid by the government, or like a lot of good employers. They pay the substantial amount of your, let's say, 3 to 6 months is really standard. That will be full paid salary, and then the rest, and then like the company is getting reimbursed from the government, and then after the 6 months, let's say your employer has paid the first 6 months, and then after the 6 months, it will be the government that pays for you. The interesting thing about Denmark, it's the same for everyone. So it's a very social welfare that, if it's not paid by your employer and it's only governmental maternity leave, it will be, regardless of your job income or taxes, you get the same money as the rest of the mom. And that has created a lot of equality in the system. Now that has moved a lot to the fathers having 3 months. And if the dads don't get the 3 months, they will be taken away. So you either take them or you lose them. So it has, I think, I haven't experienced it myself, so I can't really judge. But I think that definitely adds a lot to um, the bonding experience between the dads and the kids. Um, I've know that some moms struggle to go that fast back to work. I really wanted to go back to work. I have to be completely honest. Now maybe I regret it because it's like it's sort of the other way around. It's like maybe I would, if I have a second kid, I would love to stay longer. Um, so it's very individual experience. However, like just the last point, that turned out to be a very long answer. Sorry. Um, Dads usually go on paternity leave after the 8 or the 9 months that the mom has stayed home, which I think is the easier part of being on a leave, on a parental leave, than the first 3 months. And I know, of course, it's important for moms to be home, and I think, at least in my experience as well, the moms have a crucial role with the first months. But again, that's I think that was the hardest. And if I could like spend it, I was begging my husband to not go back to work. If I have to be honest, like I was so scared. And I usually, I mean, I consider myself pretty strong, sort of self sufficient person. But I was really like dreading the day that he would need to go back. And I remember how much I was just like keep on texting him. And now I look at our like history and how much photos and everything. It was just like constant like information flowing his way because he felt alone. And yeah, that was a
So
long
you're
answer.
saying that
Apologies.
no worries. You're saying that if he took the first 3 months, it will be better because you're both gonna be there for the most difficult part of when you're becoming a parent in the beginning.
I think in my experience, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's not the same for everyone, and I think that's why I'm like a firm believer that one size doesn't fit at all in all kind of areas in life. I think not only in parenthood,
Yeah.
but for me, would have been easier because I was just faced with a new reality that I didn't know how to manage, and I needed someone to be sort of next to me, and he was. But I wish that he was longer. And again, like maybe I could have been a bit more. I could have said to my mom, "Hey, like maybe you should come," because she did ask me. I'm like, nah, like I could do it on my own. And I know what it would have been if I had my mom around. Maybe that would have been pretty intense. But I don't know. I think the first 3 months for me at least have been like, especially as a first time mom, would have been really really intense. So I would have loved my husband to be longer with me, yes.
Yeah, and also if we think about how, because you're from Bulgaria as well, like here, grandparents are always there in the beginning, so it's quite a cultural thing. Because when I speak with moms from the UK, for instance, or the US, it's quite a different experience when it comes to the parents coming help the mom, and for the grandchild, they're not always there. Whereas here, it's like part of their job to be a
Yeah.
grandparent, to be there.
Um, I think it's a good point. My mom said she'll listen to podcasts, so I don't know much should I share. No, I'm kidding. Joke aside, both of my parents have been really, they really wanted me to to choose what is right for me, and I so much appreciate that. Because again, like, I'm not sure it would have been ideal if I would have preferred my husband and my mom 100%, because
Of course.
we are in this together with my husband. As his child, he should really be connected instead of my mom. I think I have been heavily relying on her and a different guidance and support, and calling her and maybe crying to her and so on. But for me, would maybe wouldn't have worked. I do think it's a cultural difference. I don't think necessarily only with Eastern Europe. I hear of South Americans that I have around me. It's similar, or South Europe as well. It's similar. I remember like a couple of my, we had this mom group, and some of my close moms there, they had like their moms visiting them for like a month or two. And I don't know, I think that also could add a lot of tension in the family itself, if there's like sort of almost external person that I see 3 times a year or 4 times a year to come and be with us like every single day. Because it's a new reality for my husband as well. It's not only for me, he also doesn't know how to act. So I think it's good to like have that freedom to sort of call them when we need them. They are there for us, but not to live with them. Not at least the first month. We went to Bulgaria for like a month in the summer. It was beautiful. It was lovely. But my kid was already able to, crawl and play and so on. He was not just like laying in the crib or like crying all the time.
Um, just before we continue with the topic about C-section, because that's what we're here for, I just wanted to say as a comparison that here in Bulgaria it's 2 weeks the paternity leave, and in the UK no, it's 2 months. So I think it's getting better. Where you are is like the best I've heard. Um, but before, I just wanted to ask you, you said that you really wanted to go back to work,
Yeah.
and now you're regretting it. Why do you regret it?
So during my mature, like, I decided to become a mom. Like, I will just give a bit of background. I decided to become a mom when I was doing my full-time job besides my full-time master. And that was pretty hard because I would just work all day, and then I would do stuff in the weekend or in the evenings. And I was like, just be a mom, like just add something else on top of it. And I think it's because, I'm a firm believer you don't have to choose between career, education, or a family. And I had like incredible mentors and people who have supported me in regards to that. So when I became a mom, I still had the educational piece. So when he would sleep or when I have a bit of time, I'll do some studying. I did take like also time off from my studying, but I still needed to write my master. So I remember when we were in Bulgaria, I was doing all of my research and interviews for my master. So to gather the data, and then when he started going to the daycare, I sort of finished my education besides a new job. So I actually, when he started, daycare, I got employed in a totally new place, totally new ecosystem as well, which was really strange. Coming from corporate to a startup world was have been like quite a transition. um I said, like, and I was looking forward to go back to work because I guess I thought I'll have a bit more time to focus on things that were important, because I knew like I need to finish my master, but at the same time, I mean, I want to work, I want to progress in my career. I miss so much adult conversations. I think that's like the primary reasons was actually talking about things that are not related to what he eat and what he, I don't know, like something that's not related to how much he sleeps. And I know it sounds horrible sometimes when I say that, but I was just so fed up, and I'm still am, to be honest. Like, I don't want to talk only about my kid. I love him so much, and he will be my biggest priority. And I don't even need to say that. But I don't think it's healthy for me or for him, for my kid, to be obsessed with each other. So I think that's why I'm looking forward to like go back to work, because I just miss being surrounded by adults and progress in my career, because that's a piece I I still go after. I regret it because I know I have like what 40 years in the labor market to like work, and my kid, I know everyone says that, but he'll never be that small again. So 2 3 weeks or a month are not that important in the long term for my career as much as they're important for me and my kid and the bonding experience we had. Um, but sometimes when you're in that situation, you don't think long term. You think that you want this, yeah, you just feel like this would be your present all the time, and that's not the case obviously, but you don't know that. And I mean, it's really sad to say that, but I guess I will try to be better with my second kid when I'm on my maternity leave in regards to how fast I want to go back to work.
Yeah, but I would say it's totally normal to think that, like, to not think about the future and that he will grow, etc. Because it's just not part of being young as well. Like, we don't think about the future that much. We just think about the present, and we don't think about the consequences afterwards in many different areas. Not when you're just a parent, just like everything you do. So it's quite a normal thing, but you've made your point and you're gonna think that through after that. Um, so that's great. And if we continue now, could you share a bit more about your experience with C-section and what happened there?
Yes, I excluded, I almost ignored the option of cesarean delivery being the way that I'll give birth. I felt that, I mean, my whole pregnancy, as I said, was great. And I said, like, you know, my kid should, it will be painful. I sort of like had that, it will be painful. I'm sure it will be horrible. But one way or another, he's coming out. I will go past through this experience. I know that. So I really thought it will be natural. I really thought to the very end that it will be a natural or like vaginal birth. I know unnatural is it also natural because I planned to be no medication, nothing, no interference. I feel like the more I talk about it, the more I realize that I need to maybe go seek professionals because it feels like there is some traumatic episodes there. Um, and it impacts the way you think in long term and if you want to have kids again. But in my experience, so what happened is that I gave birth on 24th, as I mentioned. On 22nd in the evening, so it was around 10 in the evening, we went to the hospital because I thought my water broke. And it was not like, you see on the movies, like, pff, and it's just water. That it was not my case. It was just start to drip. And then we went to the hospital and they were like, they checked me and said, that's not your waters. It maybe this discharge. So we went back home on during the day on 23rd, and when I woke up, immediately again like some sort of, it was this time was not dripping, but was proper water, but not like a huge amount. Um, but I was like, okay, maybe that is still some sort of the charge. I don't know. I don't even know what was I thinking. So I sort of ignored it. And throughout the day, I had this Pilates ball where I was jumping for the last 2 weeks, and I was just hoping that this kid is coming out like as soon as possible. And I was walking all the time and like back and forth and like one of the streets here. Um, and I went to like I came back from a walk and I went to pee, and then I saw like a sort of a pink discharge, and I called the hospital again. I started explaining like I have this, and I started to feel a lot of pain as well. And she told me, "Oh, maybe you have the pink discharge because they checked you yesterday, and if that's contractions and if you're in labor, you would know." I'm like thinking, how would I know? Like I really don't believe in this sort of um, advice that people hear. Listen to your body because I mean I don't know. I think like I have quite a good sense of myself, but at the same time, I don't. I endure pain, and I have endured pain, and like I have a history of injuries in my back, and which I totally ignored and lived my life through. So I didn't know like what does that mean to listen to my body. Like maybe I don't know how to recognize something is wrong unless it's too late. So she said, like, you will know when you're in labor. I was like, that's a great advice. So moved with my day, and it was around 9 in the evening on 23rd when I started to really feel intense pain, and I couldn't sleep. I was just walking around the house all the time, and I survived to 4 a.m. I have no idea how I managed to like just walk around basically and listen and to music or whatever. And I called the hospital and said, like, I feel like I'm having a contractions, but they're not that close to each other. So they were like between 8 to 10 minutes. And the lady said, well, when they're 5, you come to the hospital. So, oh, okay, like that's great. It's like, is it happening? So I was like really excited. At the same time, a bit like, okay, like I still need to wait quite a long time. But then the hospital called me back and they said, look, we saw your sort of record. We saw that you came to us on 22nd in the evening. So maybe your water actually broke back there, to come to the hospital now. And then it was 4 in the morning. My husband was actually a bit hesitant because he was like, oh, like maybe it's nothing again. I'm like, no, no. Like we pick up the pillows today and we go with the pillows. I'm not coming back without a kid. I knew that, yeah, it was just pain. Went to a hospital. They were like, yeah, actually, like you are in labor now. We need to break your waters because it's still a lot needs to go out. Um, and then I asked them, okay, what's happening now? And they said, look, we most likely will need to induce your contractions because they are not close to each other. And I have read a lot about inducing contractions, and I really didn't want to because I know just it's just not the ideal way to go, and it's also very painful for what I read. And I was like, look, I don't want to induce contractions, I want to try to do it natural. And she was like, well, most likely that won't be an option because of risk of infection since your water broke 2 days ago. I remember very clear. I said to my husband, like, look at the watch. I was like, oh, it's actually 4:30 a.m. on 24th. My mom said she had a short labor. Maybe I'll have the same. So maybe by 12 at noon, like so lunchtime, we can go, we can have a baby and go home and celebrate Christmas Eve. And now when I think about it, I'm just like, every time I think about that sort of sentence, it really stuck with me. I was like, what was that? I sort of challenged everything around me to like say like, no, no, like girl, you don't even know what's happening now. We went to the labor room. um I think after an hour or so, it's a really blurry, to be honest, 20 hours. But after an hour and a half or so, two maybe, they came and said, look, we need to induce your contractions because since most likely your water broke on 22nd in the evening, there is a risk of infection and you have 48 hours sort of before the risk of infection is really really serious, that they have some sort of timeline. And I was like, okay, like we'll induce the contractions, and I have that sort of a gas, I don't know what's called, I'm sorry, to help me with the pain. So that was, I really was against going to get epidural, at least initially. I hope that I would walk, I hope that I would go in the bath because they had like sort of a bathtub in the hospital. But since they needed to like track my cat's heartbeat and my own, they put me in the bed, and like I was with all kind of cables and like IV like drops, and uh, yeah, it was not great. And I think, and again, the timeline is a bit blurry, but around 1, I believe, I started feeling really bad with the contractions because it was just like they were just increasing the dose. And we talked about epidural, so they came and it was really good. I was so relieved, seriously. Like it was because I really wanted to get some rest, which I don't think I did, but it didn't get like, it was not throughout my whole body, so it was only part of my like lower back that coded, which still was relieving, but I could still feel some pain. I remember that they gave me, like they said to me at least, that they gave me every possible drug or like painkiller they could legally give me. And I was still in a lot of pain. There was puking. I'm sorry again for like too much info, but I think people should know about it. It was not beautiful. I felt like a trash. I'm sorry for my language. I felt like so miserable. And I just thought like how could I even push that kid? Like and my kid was it was pretty big. Like he ended up 3.8. So like how could I even manage to push him out when I feel so miserable? And again, like I didn't really walk. I squat a bit around the bed, so the cables was still on me. And I remember every time I squat, there was more water coming out. So this water never really came out all the way. And I was constantly being checked by the midwife on my like if the baby's going down or if I dilating, and I was not dilating fast enough. So it around I think I did around 10:30. I mentioned to my husband like that's 10:30 in the evening. I said to him, like, look, I really, I don't know what to do. Like, please, someone needs to help me because I can't take this anymore. Like, I fear that we might need to go to C-section. And in Denmark, it's not like you can select it really yourself. It really needs to be a medical condition. But the doctors came to me like a half an hour later and said, look, like, you've been way too long in labor, and due to risk of infections, maybe we need to, not maybe, but we need to go to C-section. And like embarrassingly enough, my first thought was not I'll see my kid. First thought was give me painkillers. I was please relieve me of that freaking pain because I can't take it anymore. It and I feel so embarrassed by that thought. And I felt very long embarrassed by the thought that I didn't very selfishly I didn't think of my kid. I think of me and my pain. But you're just in the state like your brain is such a soup because of like the pain that you have endured and the fear that you have as well that you don't think rationally, logically, or anything. You just want this to end, like in some way, possibly in a positive one. The good part, of course, is that none of my kid, not me or my kid, were in any like major life threat. Not that I'm aware of, but that was not the case. We went to the surgery. You, you know, I got to see how they take him out, and I was so drunk that like when they put him on my chairs next to me, next to my and with my husband. I remember I just like start talking to my husband and like being happy, and at the same time, all of my sentences were drifting to a completely different story that had nothing to do with my labor, simply because I was really high on drugs. And um, it was very tough, and I was feeling so. I'm getting very emotional, but I felt so miserable. Um, and I was so happy at the same time, like I had no idea what's happening. And I just felt like I want this period to I want to pass this period. I don't want to feel this way. I want to we as a family to get in a better situation and a better period, like in a better condition. So it was very late in the evening on 24th, between 24th and 25th. Actually, everyone in the hospital was really nice to me, and we had a great people around us. And so that was my experience. Afterwards, we stayed 3 days in a hospital, which is rather normal in Denmark after C-section. If you have natural birth and you feel fine, they will let you go after 3 hours. And it's really cost related. It was yeah, and all of other issues start to like come after I gave the C-section because
Mhm.
obviously your hormones are not the same and your body is not reacting as maybe would have an vaginal birth.
Well, you, from what I hear, you had a really actually traumatic birth because it's not only the C-section but everything that comes before it. And because I remember you saying that you feel embarrassed by the thought that you had, but I would say it's pretty normal when people like when a person is thinking about his life and he's enduring pain to have thoughts about his well-being, even though you're a mom now. I would say it's totally normal to feel that way, and it's just part of who we are as humans. Um, and I would, I don't know, I think you did a great job. after
You.
all. And you really seem emotional about it, but I'm really, really grateful that you're sharing this experience with us, because probably there are a lot of women that have endured some traumatic experience while giving birth without knowing that this could happen and expecting to be really easy, because their mom's birth was easy, for instance. So yeah, and what was your experience after that, after the recovery and everything? Because you've said you started talking with women about C-section. Could you tell us a bit more about that as
Yeah.
well?
I just I thank you so much, for the encouraging words, because it's so important that we recognize this, um, that we are not alone, and that's why I'll be focusing on what I'll be focusing now in the future, um, because you often feel like this is it is your experience, and no one can discredit it in any way. But unfortunately, it happens to quite a lot of women to go through traumatic experiences, and at the same time we never really talk about it unless you go through it. I don't want to scare people away, like there's many other situations which would have been much more life threatening for the woman or the kid, but at the same time, why should I discredit how I felt and push
Of
it away?
course.
um so I decided, now to like back to like talking with other women. So I decided to focus on building a venture within postpartum, specifically for women who go through C-section, because there is obviously data proving that the experience you have after delivery is could be different than those who go through vaginal birth. And in no way I discredit women who go through vaginal birth, because I can only imagine what other implications that could have both on a mental and physical space. I can only relate to women who have been through a similar experience like me. I get to hear a lot of stories that, I mean, actually, I get a bit pissed. I think my initial reaction is, as much as I have like the empathy to know what they're going through, I get very frustrated how much we have tolerated with women. And it seems like it's not only this space, but like we have let the healthcare system, and I think part of society, to just treat us as things don't matter and they are just temporary. And some of them are temporary, but that doesn't mean that they will not have an impact later on. And I think one of them is those emergency C-sections, because I mean the data shows a correlation between women going through emergency delivery in the surgery room and postpartum depression or traumatic PTSD is much higher than women who have elected that C-section or knew about it, and women who go through vaginal birth. So obviously, like when you're faced with this, like, I mean, again, like I don't know if maybe I have it's my own fault in some regards to like be so naive to think that I will not go through that experience, because I thought like I'm healthy, I've been working out, I've been doing everything right, and then I went to this like, why? Like I felt like why my body failed me, and like I have struggled with my body image all my life, and I think I still do to some extent. I felt like, well, another sort of moment where my body is not on my sort of not playing on my team, my body is me, right? And I fear that women go like that I've talked with, and now that I do some research, are going to similar feelings and often are misunderstood. It's still a stigma in many regions or taboo because it's the easy way out, some would say. Um, I don't think it's the easy way out. I will never recommend people go through surgery. That's like 7 layers in your abdominal area. It's open. That's not the easy way out. um, Even if you're liquid at your expectations often don't meet reality, because there's a lot of biological processes that are impacted and you can't be prepared for, or you have limited preparation. um, so I think we need to change the narrative and also let women choose. Like, please don't blame us what we do with our bodies. Like, I mean, if we see that like the emergency section are causing mental issues. Like, why don't we let, in some regions at least, or where I am, why don't we let them choose? I mean, I've heard stories where they're in like labor for 20 plus hours and they have asked for C-section and they're still being rejected for it because there is not medical reason for that. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's your body, like you don't want to go through that, can we like get that kid out and move on? So it's, yeah, as if you hear my emotions, I am getting like more on the annoyance part and like stubbornness in some regard, that we have tolerated a lot that should not have been tolerated. And again, not only in the, not only in that area of delivering kids, but I think in general, I would even say general healthcare, not even only with women, but now that we're talking about women's health, that we definitely been sort of not prioritized, to put it mildly.
Yeah. I don't know, because you just said the part about C-section, how it's only when it comes to emergency that a lot of regions are saying, okay, let's do it. I think it's that way in a lot of regions next to Bulgaria as well. And when I've spoken to women, it's like you're putting a woman to a lot of pain to get to the point after many hours that this can happen. Um, yeah, I'm a bit speechless right now because I never thought about it. So you're also educating me on that side. And
I mean, look, I again, like, I would never encourage people going to surgery.
yeah.
Um, and I would, thinking about like a second kid myself, I always think, well, now I say that, but let's see if it will change. But I do want to try. I know that I could try for vaginal birth, and that's what they told you. And that's the interesting part is, and after my C-section, the doctor came and they're like, but next time you can try with the vaginal birth. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Like, I failed this time, so let me try the next one. And it's not only me, like it's some other women I spoke, they had the same sort of comments from their practitioners or like doctors. And that's like language that people don't understand how much impact could have in long term. It's quite it could be quite impactful, as I say. And again, like, not recommending surgery, not recommending to, like, I think there's a lot of materials, educational platforms where people could get educated, women can get educated on natural birth. And I know that women fear that, and I fully understand hearing those stories that I shared. I get it. But there is a ways to prepare yourself, of course, but it doesn't mean we should sort of ignore. I mean, 20 to 30% in developed countries are going, women are going through C-section. That's a quite substantial amount of women who. So that's not like such a small amount. So we neglect the preparation. We should prepare for both vaginal and cesarean birth. And what do we do afterwards? Because it's possible to happen to perfectly healthy women. Um, or at least not that doctors have any insights of. I mean, I still don't know like why I couldn't dilate that fast, and give natural birth.
Mhm.
So like there's not really explanation of it. Um, but again, like, I don't want to discredit that. I mean, of course, I love to prevent it in some way. Why should I discredit women who go through it and it's happening? So let's help them. I mean, maybe we will not be able to like reduce as much the traumatic experience that they go through, but we can help them like navigate through that trauma and feel equipped enough to know that they are good moms, first of all, regardless how they delivered, and second, that um, there is tools to make you feel better, but also to engage with your kid and to feel that you're present and so on. So I think there's just like a different approach in just enabling moms to go through like a better experience in the start of their journey as mothers, because that's super impactful, how you start and how it will develop further down the road.
Yeah. So as we go to the end, I just wanted to ask you if you want to say something to women who are listening to us who have been through that, and also if you want them to reach out to you, whatever you want to say.
Yes, I just want to say again, thank you for having me. It's really freeing to be able to talk about your personal experience in the settings where you feel hurt. So I really appreciate that. What I want to say to women who go through it is to know that you are not less of a mom than women who go through vaginal birth, and you have your kid with you and hopefully healthy one. So um you did a great job, and I know it sounds a cliche, but it is, you did the best, like what is best for your kid and for you. I would love if some of your listeners or followers would connect with me, because I'm very interested to hear more personal stories and how we can make the positive experience of women who go through C-section and their recovery, both on physical and mental support, better. And also, like, back to like the bonding experience. I think the overall physical, mental sort of space combined has a huge impact on how do you interact with your kid and your partner, and with yourself. So I would love to connect with women who want to share those stories and, make it better, because we deserve it, and we should no longer tolerate, the neglect that we have been given.
That was really beautifully said, Gergana. Thank you so much for today. Yes, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And, I hope to come across the podcast again, maybe with like my own venture, and share a bit about insights. Who knows, in a couple of months or a year. So I hope that's just a bye. It's not a farewell.
Okay.
Good.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.